Greetings. I got a long story to tell you today, and before I go that far with it, I want to talk about my bit of morality. I have three main moral codes. I've talked about this in other videos, I've written about it, and it's always in this order: loyalty, trustworthiness, and honesty. Those are my three biggies. I learned those from my dad. I was a military kid, and loyalty is very big in the military. It used to be. I don't know if it still is. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying that that used to be a big deal. If you didn't necessarily have to like somebody, but you had to be loyal. Think about it. You're going to war with someone, you want loyalty. You want to know that that person next to you is going to try to protect your life as much as you're going to try to protect their lives. When it comes to business, it's a little bit different. Things don't always go that way because things aren't necessarily always that crucial. You would think that they should be, but they're not. I've always lived by the loyalty creed. You have to do something really bad for me to decide, no, you're not worth it. I think that loyalty has to be somewhat earned, but you go into a job saying you're going to give it the best you can. And if you can give it the best you can, a lot of times you're going to get people who are going to turn around and say, hey, you know what, this person's good. We're going to do whatever we can to keep this person. And you think that that's loyalty. It is not loyalty. Loyalty will not be given to you at any job, even if you're the CEO of a company. And with that, let's get into this story. Back in 1999, I'm working at this hospital in, I would just call it Northern New York, this 2-hospital facility, and we're waiting to change over to a new computer system. And before that happens, I get an offer from another company, not a hospital. It was medical, but it wasn't a hospital. I get an offer for this job, which would have been right here in town, and it would have paid me a lot more than what I was making already. And I'm thinking, wow, this is not bad. But because I'm the loyal guy, because this is just what I do, and because it was 99, it was months away from the millennial changing, and I had been going through all this stuff with the people there at the hospital, trying to get coding ready, different coding things ready, so that when we got on this new computer system, we'd be able to go. I would be leaving before all that. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to go and give these folks an opportunity to equal what the other people were paying me, to at least equal it. I wasn't even going to look for more money. So I did. I went to them. I said, yeah, I get this offer, and it's right in town, and it's more than what I'm getting paid. And I'm going to give you the opportunity because I feel loyal to this hospital. I've done a lot of stuff at this hospital, and we've done some good work together. And so what they did is they gave me an equal amount of pay, but they bumped it up a little bit because we were also going through, in 1999, we had kind of a gas shortage, and the price of gas had gone up. Not as high as it is now, believe it or not, but the price of gas had gone up. So they raised my salary so that it would cover the increase in gas prices. Okay, you know what? Y'all want me. And I signed a contract with them for 2 years. Okay, no, I'm not going to look anywhere else. I'm not going to go anywhere for 2 years. So we go through all this stuff. And what ended up happening early on is, one, we were told that we wouldn't be getting the computer system until September 1st. We were supposed to get it a lot earlier than that. We were the last out of this hospital system. It was basically a 5-hospital system, but we merged with another hospital, so it was a 4-hospital system. And we were going to be last because we were the small folks. But they had made promises to us. And it's the people in a different area. They'd made some promises. Yes, we're going to implement this system. We're going to train your people how to do it. And we're going to write software or write programs so that we can copy everything you have on your present system into this computer system because we've done it with everybody else. And then they didn't do it. So what they did is they told us, you're getting the system in September. However, we can't train everybody. So you need to send 3 or 4 people out to us, and we will train those 3 or 4 people. We had 3 weeks to send those people there. And unfortunately, we can't write software. We don't have enough time. We can't write any programs for it. So you're going to have to figure out what to do on the back end. And one other thing, we had a contract with the Blue Cross. Everyone in this country knows what Blue Cross is. We had a contract with Blue Cross, and it was on hold. So we hadn't gotten any payments in the entire year. We just hadn't gotten any payments. When you don't have any payments, because you still have a contract that's out there, you can't self-pay everybody. That wouldn't be right. So what they did is they told us how much they would have paid, but you can't take would have paid payments and put it in the system and say you got the payment because you don't have the payment, which basically says you can't bill anybody for co-pays. You can't bill secondary to any other insurance. You're stuck. So we get into the week in November, Thanksgiving week, when the contract with the Blues is finally signed. So here we go. We get this contract signed. We get massive amounts of paper, tons and tons of paper. They couldn't send it electronically because we now couldn't put anything on the old system because it was going away. And we had to try to put everything on the new system. But what that meant is that we had to try to re-register as many people as possible with all these things. I pitched in, writing, helping to try to do all these things. It was tons of stuff. And it had to be done at least a week before the end of the year. So we were pitching in. We were trying to do everything we could. And we weren't sure, well, what are we going to do with everything else? And I came up with the idea. I went and I talked to the CFO and I said, the only thing I can think of is that we need to have a paper dump. Everything on the old system, the system that's leaving, if it's not a zero balance, we need a paper dump. We just have to do it. There's just no other way. And we probably need to do it alphabetical because it's the only thing that would work. You can't break it out by insurance company because you're not really sure what insurance is going to be. It's got to be alphabetical. Only way to do it. So we did that. We broke out all these bills. We broke out remember back then you printed everything on this paper, the green bar paper, where it was green and white. It was tons of stuff. Everything was just, it was ugly. And we had just merged like a year earlier with another hospital. So we had to find a place to put all this stuff. And we did. And it was ugly. And then the millennial happened. And nothing fell apart except for the fact that now we couldn't use the old system anymore because even though it still would have worked, the license had expired because we weren't updating it. So we weren't by law allowed to use the old computer system. So now all we have is all this massive paper. And we had all these payments that luckily we did get in by a week so that we could print all this stuff. But we didn't have a real plan because that's not what we were expecting we were going to have to do. So anyway, we get that done. We've got basically 3 people who are going to try to train everybody else on how to use the new computer system because I couldn't send everybody to another city. I just couldn't do it. And it was ugly. Everything was ugly. So what ends up happening is a few months down the line, and I get called into a meeting with the CFO, and he says, okay, we're in a bad way. We know that you've been dealt a bad card, but here's the thing. We need to hit this number by October or November. We need to hit this number. And if we don't hit this number, then I'm going to lose my job and you're going to lose your job. I said, really? He says, yeah, unfortunately, that's just how it's going to be. So I said, okay, I'll get back to you on that. And he was stunned. What do you mean? I said, I got to decide whether I want to do this or not. I've done everything I could for this facility, for this hospital, for this system, and I need to find out if I'm willing to do it. And I need to find out if the folks are willing to do it. So I'll get back to you. I'll give you 3 days. I'll tell you in 3 days. So I go back to my office, and for the rest of that day, I'm kind of just sitting there staring at my monitor, just kind of staring at it. And then the next morning, I call my supervisors in, and I told them what was going on, and they were incredulous. Like, wait, what? With everything we had to do, they cut us out. They didn't do everything they should have for us, and now they're giving us this. Yes, they're doing this. So here's the thing. This is what I told them. I said I wasn't sure that I wanted to do it. So what I'm saying here is that we need to decide, are we going to do this? If you guys say, you know what, no, we don't want to go through all that, it's going to be a mess, fine. I go back and tell them I'm gone. I'm out of here. Yes, I did sign a 2-year thing, but they've already canceled it in my mind by telling me I would lose my job before that year is up. So they thought about it. They said, yeah, you know what? We don't have anything else that we can do in this town. Let's see what we can do. I said, okay, now we have to get buy-in from everybody else. But before we do that, we have to come up with an idea, come up with a plan of what we hope to do, how we're going to do it. And so we brainstormed for about 3 hours or so. Heck, I went and got pizza so that we could sit in this office of mine, which luckily it was big enough for us to be in there. It wasn't super, super comfortable, but really we didn't have anywhere else we could go. And we brainstormed and we came up with an idea. I said, okay, now we've got to pitch it to everybody. And I said, we need the overwhelming majority. If 2 or 3 people decide they don't want to do it, okay, fine. But we need overwhelming majority of people to help with this, along with what we're going to do. So we go out and I get everybody together. I said, okay, just so y'all know. And like I said, this is me being loyal to my employees, because I could have basically acted like there was nothing there and then waited until October and then left. I could have just gone. I could have left early, said nothing to anybody, and just left them in a lot of financial difficulties. But I didn't, because I was a loyal guy. I had done a lot of stuff with these people. I trusted my department. I had trained them well. So we go in and I lay down what's been going on. I tell them everything. I say, this is what we need to do. We're going to have to actually add some overtime. I got approval for that. So anyone wants to work overtime to try to whittle down this paper that we have, get this stuff out, get it in a new system. We're going to do that. We're going to bring in temporary people, outside folks, to handle some of the paper, because there's no way in the world we can train them enough to do the work. We need someone to handle the paper, though. Someone's got to look that stuff up. Someone's got to write things down so that we can put other stuff in. We're going to train one person to be able to input all this information, almost like a registration person who's not a registration person. They're just going to copy certain stuff so we can get it on the system so that then we can do everything we need to do. So we came up with a plan, and we worked our plan. And we got to October and November, and I'm doing the regular reports. I was working overtime. And the thing is, I lived an hour away, which basically meant I was going in earlier and I was leaving late. I was leaving sometimes at 9 o'clock at night, getting home around 10 o'clock. And I still had other jobs. I was a corporate compliance officer of the hospital, and I was on a couple of committees for the overall organization. So I couldn't always be there, but I was giving as much as I could. And we worked. We did whatever we could. And we were bringing down the outstanding accounts receivables. We were doing that. We were showing the money. We were actually doing well. We were kind of humming. But I knew there were some deficiencies in the system. And I knew there were a few deficiencies within the work that we were doing, because there were inefficiencies within the system. But I couldn't handle the system because that wasn't my job. I had told people there were certain things that needed to be done, but they didn't do it. If I hadn't had this other thing dumped onto me, I probably would have done it because I had done it before, but I just didn't have the time to do it with everything else I had to do. So what happens is that now we get into 2001. And overall, the numbers don't look as good as everyone thinks they should. The truth of the matter is, the numbers were actually good, but there was a lack of proper numbers and proper processes that it put in the general ledger. So they weren't recording certain things. We knew that. I had told the CFO that. I had given him a report saying, this is what this is. We're tracking it manually, but you're not tracking it on the computer because there's general ledger numbers that are missing. They're not showing all this stuff. Well, he must not have understood me, or he didn't care. Next thing you know, he's gone. Then the next thing you know, the CEO of the overall organization is gone. So there's changes coming. And I predicted it. I had even said there's certain things going to happen. Now, what I didn't expect was that one day I was going to get called into a meeting with our CEO, who was now considered a senior vice president of the organization, but he was over our hospital. So his title had changed. So now he's the vice president. And he said, well, we've got this problem with the receivables, and I've decided that we're going to send the entire billing department to another city. And I'm like, wow, really? With all the work we've done, and we've been doing good work. And I've been giving you the reports of what we're doing. So he goes and he pulls out this other report and he sits it down. And I look at this thing and saying, but that's wrong. I said, I know it's wrong. I've been giving you, and I'm not going to say the name of the CFO, but I've been giving you guys this report. I've been saying for months that the general ledger number wasn't in properly. There's some general ledger numbers that are missing, and you're missing all this stuff. We were actually doing really well. He said, well, but based on this report, I can't go with that. So in the long run, it ends up that my billing department is moving to Rochester. Not just my department, though. There were a couple other departments that were going to happen. But what I said to our vice president, our senior vice president, I said, okay, you can do this. But I'm going to tell you this. And I want you to know this. I've told you this. 6 months from the day we leave, you're going to be sitting here. You're going to be looking at a report that you're going to get from them. And you're going to say, wow, what has happened to my cash? I should have never sent my department out there. It's 6 months. It's probably going to be 3, but it's going to take you 6 months to see the reality of what's going to happen. So we do whatever we can to show the loyalty of the department. Everybody worked up until the last day. They could have left anytime they wanted to. I could have left. But because the department decided to stay, the people reported to me, I decided to stay. So we all stayed up until the last day. Now, I did leave around noon. Why stay the entire day the last day? It's like, I'm out of here. We're gone. But they stayed because they all lived in that area. So what ends up happening, and this was interesting, I was also over registration. I had the registration supervisor who reported to me. She was still there. So she, out of everyone who worked for me, her and the registration people were the people who were going to stay. 6 months later, she sends me an email. She went up to a meeting, and she met with the senior vice president of the company, and he was talking to her, and he said, I can't believe our cash is this bad. I don't know why I agreed to send everybody out of town. We were doing so much better when we had our own billing department. Really? How about that? And she thought it was funny because I had told her that I had told him that. And he obviously didn't remember that I had told him that, but she remembered. And that was that bit of loyalty, because she wanted to let me know I was right. And that he now was upset that he had done it, and he should have listened to me, even though he didn't remember that I told him that was going to happen in 6 months. And here's the thing. We, not just me, but my department, we did everything we could. We were given a bad hand. We came up with our own solution. We were doing work that probably the other hospitals could not have done. Luckily, we were smaller, but we weren't getting any attention. No one was paying any attention to us. And so we came out and we did it. We put together. Why? Because we were loyal. I was loyal. My employees were loyal. Even the temps that we got in there, everybody was loyal. We were all doing it. Not a single employee left, by the way. None of them. They all stayed. Thank you for that. But it was one of those kind of things where we were as loyal. We were doing good work. I knew what I was doing. My department knew what they were doing. But it was all for naught. Because loyalty means nothing in big companies when it comes to either money or when it comes to the idea that someone else is running things. They don't care. It didn't matter that at one point before we ran into this new computer thing and before they didn't sign the contract, we were humming. Our days and receivables basically says how many days it takes for you to get paid after you bill insurance companies and get everything down to zero as much as possible. We were at 43 days. That just doesn't happen. But we were at 43 days, whereas the national average at that time was around 75 days. We were at 43. We were humming. We were good. And that's how we were treated. And I knew it was going to happen that way. I even could have told the senior vice president how it was going to work because there's a certain psychology I knew, but I decided not to at that certain point because it wasn't going to help. He had already made up his mind. The CFO was gone. He had made up his mind. There you go. What can you do? So I'm doing this today because I've told you this story. I am not saying that every company is... Okay, yes, I am. They're disloyal. They don't really care about the worker. If you are the worker, they don't really care about you. They're going to tell you they do, but they don't. They may give you that raise, but in essence, they feel like they owe you or you owe them because they gave you a raise. No matter what the condition is, you owe them. That's how they see it. And they can break the rule because, like I said, I signed a 2-year contract and then they broke the rule. What do? You do the best you can, and hopefully you take away whatever you can learn from them so that you can qualify to do that same work somewhere else, or like I did, go into business for yourself, because loyalty is not always a two-race street. I still believe in loyalty being my number one moral compass. It is. It just has to be. It's hard. I can't drop that one. Trustworthiness, number 2. Well, I couldn't really trust them once I knew they had broken the code. Honesty, yes. I have to give them honesty because they came to me and said they were going to do this thing. But the first 2, violated. Totally violated. And, you know, you have to look out for yourself. You just have to do it. I look out for myself because I'm self-employed. But whenever I'm on a gig, well, I haven't been able to go on a gig because we had the pandemic and because I'm home with my mother. But whenever you contract with someone or you're doing work for someone else, you should always be loyal to the job. You shouldn't necessarily be thinking about yourself unless you're trying to be the best you can be at doing the job. But know that you're this far away, always, no matter how good you are, you're this far away from someone taking your job away from you. That's just how that is. Sad story, isn't it? But I had to tell the whole story so that I could get to that point. Anyway, my name is Mitch Mitchell. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on loyalty. Are you loyal? Let me know if you feel protected or if you don't. Y'all have a good day.